We will get started in just a little bit after some Mozart. Welcome to Switzerland. Well, for once in a long time, I didn't cut Mozart off. That's a good thing, right? Well, I'm glad that you could join us this morning on a busy Tuesday morning following the Memorial Day weekend. And hopefully, you had some good time off, but also time to reflect as well for the ultimate sacrifice that so many have made to ensure our freedoms. We celebrate veterans all the time, hopefully, but that's a special day to remember those that gave all for the cause that they were fighting for at the time, whether it was the Second World War. I don't think we have many left around from the First World War or Vietnam or Korea or Afghanistan or Iran. You know, any of the conflicts that we've had, there have been a lot of lives lost, even in this current one against Iran that President Trump initiated. So let's pray that they stay safe so we can celebrate fewer on Memorial Day, right? That's kind of what I'm hoping for. So I'm going to have the opportunity to show you a machine that you haven't seen before on this channel today with that coveted Swiss engineering. And this particular machine, as the title would imply, belongs to a gal by the name of Jennifer. And she's out of the great state of Tennessee. She drove over through that really cool tunnel that Susie and I showed you shortly after we came to the Kentucky area. Came through that tunnel and we met over in Middlesboro, and I was able to collect this machine up. Now, when we met, the machine was having a number of issues, including this. I'll just give you a glimpse of it. There it is. That's what she was getting as far as sewing. Well, there were a number of things contributing to a yucky outcome like this. And it included that check spring. It wasn't moving full range like it was supposed to be moving. We also had some issues also on the bottom side with a bobbin case that was missing something really, really important. I'm going to tilt my screen a little bit so I can see what you're seeing. If anyone in the audience wants to comment as far as what is this bobbin case missing? What is this bobbin case missing that might be pretty essential to the sewing process? This is the one that was in the machine when I collected it up from Jennifer. Again, from Tennessee. Originally, Jennifer, if I remember correctly, Jennifer was from the great state of Indiana. She was a Hoosier, and she gave up her Hoosierism to become a Tennessee Titan, to become a Tennessee resident instead of being an Indiana resident. So if you didn't figure it out looking at that bobbin case, it's missing one of the most critical pieces that it could possibly be missing, and that is the tension band. There's a tension band that goes from one end. See if I can get a good shot of it here. There's a tension band that goes from this end over here to this end over here and is held in place with a screw. The whole thing is missing. And I don't know what happened to it. Jennifer, I told her about it. I sent her progress pictures, and she never responded. So I don't know if it was taken off in an effort to clean it and then it was lost. I don't know if when she got it serviced many years ago at a festival, if they took it off, and she's been struggling all this time with a bobbin case that wasn't supposed to be doing what it was supposed to be doing. That really is going to give you a lot of headaches if you don't have a tension band on there when it comes to getting balanced tension in any way, but especially your top stitching is going to be really, 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 really awful. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. I don't remember if this was the top stitching or the lock stitching, but yeah, some not so good results. And after I went through and spent several hours, and if you're curious about the process that I took this Swiss Miss through, you can look for that link at the top of the live chat in this live stream, and you can look at the pictures in detail of what steps I took this Bernina ACTIVA 130 through. A lot of steps, and I only captured a small portion of them in the photos. Otherwise, I would spend 90% of my time taking pictures, and the process would take even longer than it takes me already. Probably take me 12 to 15 hours instead of 4 to 6 hours. But the result after going through all of those steps that you can see posted on Facebook through that link, I was getting results like this. And this is what we want to be seeing, isn't it? That's what we want to be seeing on any sewing machine. The beauty of that stitching from top to bottom to bottom to top. And we're going to be replicating some of those stitches again. And also I'm going to be walking you through some of the things in the manual that Jennifer loaned me. And this is going to be a kind of a triune manual. It's going to be covering not only the Model 130, but it's also going to be covering the Model 131. See where my finger is. It's going to be covering the Model 131, and then also an even later model called the later model. I better drink some tea. A later model called the Patchwork Edition 140. So this manual, I know why manufacturers do this. I get it. It's a lot more cost effective to put together a manual that's going to cover multiple machines and not have to reprint it again and again and again. But you also have to be careful as you're reading through it as an owner operator, because all of a sudden you might read something that applies to the Model 131, and maybe you have the 130, or maybe you have the patchwork, and all of a sudden you try applying a principle from the 130 to that much later model. So manuals are a great resource to any sewing machine generally, but when they start dumping in 3 models into one book, and it's a fairly extensive book, probably, well, I shouldn't say fairly extensive. It's actually only 26 pages. It's only a 26-page manual by Bernina. And so to fit 3 machines into 26 pages, I don't know. I think they could have done that a little bit differently. That's really only ascribing 8 to 10 pages for every machine. And certainly these machines require a little bit more attention than 8 to 10 pages. At least they do, in my opinion. I think that's kind of cutting it short. And also, as you go through manuals, this particular manual, you can tell that Jennifer was incredibly proud. She actually, I won't show it to you because it has her last name as well, and I like to respect the privacy of my customers, but she wrote in the front of the book her full name, Jennifer, and then her middle initial, her last name, and she put new machine, and then she put down May 26, and she put down the year. Anyone want to guess as to what year this model, this Activa 130, might have come out? Does anyone want to take a guess? Come on. It looks like we've got a pretty robust audience. How many would like to step out of the shadows into the light and take a swing at guessing what year this Model 130 was brand new when Jennifer got it? And shortly after that, she was at a some sort of a quilt fest or something like that, and they had I'll call it a Jiffy Lube. They had a Jiffy Lube option to get your machine serviced, and she signed up for that, and she left the machine with them for a couple of hours. And after getting it serviced, she didn't use it a lot, hardly at all. And so as I was going through and servicing this machine the workshop way, I showed her pictures of what I found inside, deep inside of the machine. And she was like, there's no way those people at that festival did anything to that machine, and they charged me $50 to do it. So, and I was serviced back in, let's see, when was it serviced? That would have been serviced back in 2010. And then the machine sat pretty much in its case for most of that time. So, buyer beware. When you're looking to get something cheap, that's probably what you're going to get. When you're looking to get something done right, you might have to pay a little bit more, but is it going to make a world of difference as far as what your machine does and how it performs? So keep that in mind. If you call around, if you're in the Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky area, and you're a value shopper, no harm in that. No harm in being a value shopper, but know that most often than not, you're going to get what you pay for. So if someone says, I'll do your machine from bobbin to balance wheel for $50, you might want to pause, especially on a machine like this, because this machine is very, like most Swiss engineering, is a very complex machine to service. Also, it's a very complex machine to disassemble. And not only do you have all the mechanical functions of this machine, you also have 3 circuit boards in this machine that also need to be serviced as well. If you've got an electronic or a computerized machine and you ask your technician, wherever you are in the world, are you going to service my circuit boards to extend the life of them? And they say, we don't do that kind of work. We don't do that kind of work. You might want to go somewhere else, because if one of these boards fails on a machine like this, you're looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, not just for the board, but to install it as well. So get the machine serviced properly, extend the life of the machine, extend your pleasure in that machine much longer, and pay a little bit more. Dig a little bit deeper into your pocket and get the machine serviced properly, like Jennifer did, originally from Indiana and now from the great state of Tennessee. All right. Well, let me do this. I'm going to walk you through the manual a little bit before I even walk you around the machine, because the manual has some good tips on it. It's got some good tips, but it also has a couple tips that are a little bit on the end of confusion. So this is the original. I've got to show you this guy. He's a good looking fella. This is the original founder of Bernina. And if anyone knows any of the history of Bernina, type it in the live chat, because I'm going to share some of that. But if you want to type a little bit of what you know about the Bernina Sewing Machine Company, anything at all, go ahead and type that into the live chat. And the one thing I will tell you straight away that makes them unique, and it's not the fact that they're in Switzerland. That's not the fact, because they also have some manufacturing in Thailand as well. But what makes them incredibly unique is that from the date of the time that they were founded, which goes all the way back to the 1800s, so much earlier than Juki or Janome, and I talk about them a lot being younger companies. But Bernina, from its founding and to the present, still remains a family-owned business. How unique is that? So if you buy a Bernina today, you're buying it from their family for your family. And I think that's super duper cool. And they also love to involve their customers in a lot of their festivities. In other words, if they have a big get together based on feedback they've gotten from certain customers about a model that they have or have had for generations, and they just love that machine, they will invite that customer to that big shindig and actually involve them in the festivities and give them a trophy or give them a medal to celebrate their love of Bernina. Now, I don't know any other companies in the world that manufacture sewing machines that do that. And it's because they're a family owned business still today. They're still family owned and they see their customers as an extension of the family. Gosh, I wish all manufacturers would embrace that philosophy, don't you? I wish they all would embrace that because it generally is a principle that you take care of your family. That's certainly the case here at Cow Country. When we're in these live streams, when we're in premieres, our leadership team takes care of the family because they care about you guys. They care about each one of you. If you never step out of the shadows, I'm not sure how many are in the audience right now, but if you never step out of the shadows into the light and give us the privilege and honor of meeting you and celebrating what you do in the sewing space, they're still going to take care of you. They're going to be monitoring the chat. If you get occasionally we get crazy people that come into the chat and they type weird stuff. Sometimes they type offensive stuff. Sometimes they post things that are not family friendly, and the leadership team will pounce on them to protect all of you because we want this to be something. If your grandchildren, if your great grandchildren, if your kids are in the room, you don't have to be afraid about what's going to be in that live stream or what's going to be in that premiere because we have a fortress of moderators and leadership team members that are looking out for you. And I think that's the way Bernina looks at it. Bernina wants everything they do to be family friendly. So am I a fan of Bernina? Absolutely. Not only because of the way they build their machines, which is critical, not only because they really genuinely believe in improving on things, they believe in our CANI principle. Does anyone remember what CANI stands for? CANI. If anyone remembers, we haven't talked about this for a while, but if anyone remembers what the CANI principle is, CANI, type it in the live chat. And I haven't asked. Hopefully the microphone is working well today and you can hear everything that I'm saying loud and clear. So it looks like we had a number of guesses as far as the year that this particular Activa Model 130 was manufactured. And there certainly was a range of manufacturing, but I'm going to send the answer to Jenny out in Ohio, and then she can post it because it looks like a couple people took a swing at it, which I appreciate. So I'm going to see if I can find Jenny's phone number and shoot that answer over to her real quick. So while I'm doing that, you all get acquainted, get caught up on, what each of you has been doing, not just over the Memorial Day weekend, but how are people doing? Are they enjoying good health? I know all the humidity here and all the rain has really been taking a toll on Susie. It gets real humid and hot and sticky here, kind of almost like a little bit of a Florida environment. And boy, oh boy, does that hit someone hard, anyone hard, but particularly those that have asthma, COPD, etc. And so I know that Susie's been spending a lot more time inside because of the air conditioning, giving her some degree of protection from all that humidity. all that humidity can be real rough. Even as I walk around the property or run around the property with the dogs, I find myself getting more winded too. And I don't have asthma, I don't have COPD. So for those that do, like Susie and others, you can only imagine how tough that is on them to catch their breath. I'm still scrolling looking for Jenny's number. I know I'll find it. Okay, I finally found it. Finally found it. Okay, so I'm going to send over that year that our customer Jennifer got this machine. It would have been the year that they started manufacturing it, and yeah, and then we'll go from there. Let me see, where is that date? Aha, there it is. Okay, I just sent it over to Jenny. So when Jenny gets it, sometimes takes a little bit for it to come through. But when she gets it, she'll post that in the live chat. And that is the year again that our customer, Jennifer, got it. As far as I understood, it was the first year that the machine was produced. And I'm not sure how many years they produced this machine because they went through a couple of phases, as the owner's manual would suggest. They went through a couple of phases with the model 130, the model 131, and then finally the model 140, which was a patchwork edition by Bernina. So going through all those different phases, this machine was probably out on the marketplace for about 3 years, 3 to 4 years, and then they continued to introduce these successors after that, the Model 131, and then ultimately the Model 140 as well. But so Jenny has on the internet that it was actually produced in 1999. And again, we found, especially with the AI searches, they're not always exactly spot on. They sometimes get things really wrong. But let's assume that it was produced in 1999. That means that it was out there in the marketplace for a couple of years before Jennifer got hers. And that certainly is possible. But again, I've found that the AI searches, and oftentimes they push their stuff to the front. The AI searches sometimes miss the mark. But whenever it was produced, whether it was late 1990s, 1999, or whether it was produced in 2001, it's a great little machine. And from going through it from one end to the other, genuinely, not like the people at the festival back in 2010, this machine was built with the customer in mind. It's generally very user friendly. It's engineered. It's built like a tank. Trying to break a Bernina is pretty difficult because they generally engineer a lot of quality into their machines. So back to the manual that I talked about that covers 3 different machines. Back to that manual. One of the things that I always look for when I'm looking at a manual like this is how well it describes the machine and the functions of the machine. And it does a fairly good job through diagrams like this, where they break out all the bells and whistles and the different features of the machine, what this button does and what that button does, etc. And also explaining the screen, which is a little bit unique on this Model 130. We'll take a closer look at that when we're making changes to some of the stitches, and you'll kind of see what I mean. But I also look for the basics like the setup, etc. How well does it describe threading the machine? How well does it describe the bobbin case, etc.? Oh, I should also point out, it highlights here that because this book covers a variety of different models, the Model 130, the Model 131, and then also the Model 140, they emphasize here, and I'll just do this for the benefit of owners, especially if you have a foot controller that fails. They emphasize here that as far as the foot controllers for the models 130, 131, and the 140 PE, you want to make sure that on the bottom of that foot controller, it's marked with LV1 or LV2. LV1 or LV2. Hopefully you can see that. And the reason I take time to show that to you is there's a lot of efforts out there to sell aftermarket products. They sell aftermarket bobbins. They sell aftermarket bobbin cases. They sell, aftermarket foot controllers, motors, you name it. If they can possibly sell it, they're going to try to sell it. So when it comes to certain electronic or computerized machines, the aftermarket ones are not built to spec, and they can actually do damage to your sewing machine. And so just be mindful if you happen to have either the Bernina model 130, 131, or the model 140, the manufacturer is warning you that don't buy an aftermarket one. Make sure you get one of those original ones that is rated like the LV1, the LV2. Otherwise, you could do damage to your machine. Like I said, this machine has 3 circuit boards in it. And if you've got a foot controller that is the gateway for the electricity, all of a sudden allow more electricity to flow through than it should, like a little mini surge, you could end up frying one of those circuit boards. So I always lean towards the manufacturer when I can, because they're going to be the ones that created that machine, and they're going to be the ones that know that machine better than anyone. At least they should. Don't you agree? So then on page, what page is this? On page 8, as far as part of the setup, it covers setting up the bobbin and the bobbin case right down here. And the pictures that they give are really good, and they're really helpful. But they're written instructions. Again, when you're taking written instructions from one language to another, because these manuals would have also been written in Swiss as well, or maybe in French, because there are a lot of French speaking people in Switzerland as well. And while the pictures are real helpful, and they show you how to hold the bobbin case, how to put the bobbin in that, they write over here, and I'll get real close so you can read it with me. The bobbin must turn clockwise when thread is pulled. The bobbin must turn clockwise when thread is pulled. Now, the only problem is, in most cases, when you're looking at the setup of a machine, you're most concerned about the direction that thread is turning in the operation of the machine. You're not always specifically thinking about, okay, if I pull the thread, it's going to turn this way. It really depends then on how you're holding that bobbin case. Are you holding the bobbin case away from you? Are you holding the bobbin case facing you? Like in the pictures, here they've got the bobbin facing us here. So the thing I want to emphasize is when you're reading instructions, think about what they're showing you, think about what they're saying to you, and then think about how that bobbin case is potentially going to operate in that machine. In this instance, if you misread this and you say, okay, I'm going to set up my bobbin case so that it's turning clockwise, because they said right here, clockwise when the thread is pulled. Well, if a bobbin case is in this Activa model 130 and that thread is being pulled out, and you say, okay, the manufacturer says when that thread is being pulled, the bobbin case, or the bobbin rather, should be turning clockwise, you're going to have a lot of problems, because it's actually the opposite with this Swiss-made Activa. When that thread is being pulled, in operation in the machine, that bobbin is going to be turning counterclockwise, not clockwise. So this is where reading directions very carefully is absolutely critical to setting up your machine to operate and have success. And I think what they meant is as you're looking at the photo, and you're pulling that thread, it's going to be turning clockwise, at least appear to be turning clockwise. But as it's in the machine and as that thread is being pulled by the machine, that bobbin is going to be turning counterclockwise. Okay, I hope that helps. The other thing that you may have noticed as you were looking at that bobbin case that the customer had in the machine when I got it is going to be, for all practical purposes, I'm going to turn it like that, and then I'm going to turn it like this. It is, for all practical purposes, a class 15 style bobbin case. Can you see that? Now, class 15 bobbin cases will work in this machine because that's what I'm operating it with right now, or that's what I will be operating it with shortly. But remember, class 15 bobbin cases have different finger setups. Some are pointed at the 2 o'clock position. Some are pointed at the 11 o'clock position. Some of them have a wider throat opening right here that you can see to accommodate certain embroidery stitches, especially if there's tri-motion. Some are going to have a shorter throat plate opening, a more narrow throat plate opening. Some are going to have, the throat plate is really the big deal when it comes to using a bobbin case that wasn't originally designed for the machine. You'll always want to test it by hand turning that machine to make sure that all of those stitches can be executed safely with that particular throat plate opening that you're using for that replacement bobbin case, okay? You always want to be incredibly careful about that by hand turning the machine. Do not push on the foot controller because you're potentially going to damage the hook, or you're going to damage the bobbin case, or you're going to even possibly cause a misalignment or a calibration and timing issue with the needle bar. In extreme circumstances, it can actually knock that needle bar out of alignment if it all of a sudden that needle, especially a larger gauge needle, hits that metal. It can actually cause the timing of the machine to be thrown off as well. Now, we talked a little bit just right now about damaging the hook on this machine. Does anyone want to guess what kind of hook system this Swiss-made Activa Model 130 has? Does it have a long beak shuttle? Does it have a rotary hook system? What kind of hook system does this Activa 130 by Bernina have? Type that in the live chat if you would. Type that in the live chat. I also just got a text message. Let me just see who the text message is from real quick. Oh, it's from the customer. It's a text message from the customer, Jennifer, out of Tennessee, originally from Indiana. Okay. She's simply indicating that she is actually jumping on a plane right now. She was down in Texas watching, I believe it was a nephew graduating from school. I don't know if it was high school or college or whatever it was, but Jennifer is jumping on a plane right now to come back from Texas back to Tennessee. So I'm assuming she's going to fly into Knoxville probably. So hopefully she has a safe trip. And she just writes, hope you have a great turnout on the YouTube presentation. Well, yeah, we do, Jennifer. We've got about 1,000 658 people that are watching your machine right now. Uh, Over 1,600 people from around the world. So yeah, that's really cool. But it's always great to have an owner. It's always great to have an owner in the live stream. But today we won't have that opportunity because she's going to be on an airplane flying from Texas back to Tennessee. Yeah. And hopefully, with both of those states starting with T, they don't issue her boarding pass in the wrong way and send her somewhere else like Tasmania. That would be horrible. And yes, we even have people that follow us and attend live streams from Tasmania. How do I know that? Because I did a contest one time and I gave away a sewing book when I was giving away sewing books back in the day all the time. And I mailed a sewing book to Tasmania, to one of our Cow Country family members that lives in Tasmania. And oh my goodness, that friend of ours shared pictures of where they live. It is a little piece of heaven. It's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, I don't remember. Let's see, Miss T3668, I believe, is Teresa. And we had a couple of guesses. Jenny was saying rotary hook. I would have guessed rotary hook too, because this just looks like it would be a rotary hook machine out of Switzerland, doesn't it? But guess what? And the bobbin case being a class 15 style kind of gives you a little bit of a hint. It's actually an oscillating hook machine. And so Teresa, out of the great state of Wisconsin, nailed it. This is an oscillating hook machine. And so if you're not familiar with what are you talking about? What the heck is the difference between an oscillating hook, a rotary hook, a long beak shuttle hook, a long bobbin hook, a cheeseburger and fries hook? What's the difference between all of those? Well, if one of the leadership team members wants to type a brief description of the difference between an oscillating hook and a rotary hook, that would be super cool to do that. Super cool to do that. Type it in the live chat, and that way everybody that's beginning to learn these different systems and setups for these machines will have a basic understanding of, okay, what's the difference between oscillating and rotary. So that would be great if you could do that. Now I'm going to circle back a little bit. I'm going to circle back to Bernina. So did Bernina start out Bernina? Did Bernina start out Bernina? The answer is no, they didn't. Much like the story of Janome that I've told all of you about. Janome originally was the Pine Sewing Machine Company back in the day. And then many, many, many years afterwards, they were looking at a bobbin, and as the story goes at least, and it looked like the eye of a snake. And so all of a sudden, Janome starts calling themselves Janome because in Japanese, that means eye of the snake, right? Well, Bernina had a little bit of a different renaissance. They were originally named after the owner. And the owner again, Gegoff. I hope I'm saying that name right. Otherwise, with it still being a family business, I'll get a note from one of his family members saying, "You said our name wrong, Scott. You said our name wrong." But I believe it's Gegoff. Susan and I watched a little clip on YouTube last night talking about the Bernina history, and that's how they pronounced it, Frederick Gegoff. So originally, the company carried the name of the founder, and it was Gegoff something or other. If someone wants to look that up real quick and type it in the live chat, that would be super cool. And they gained their fame and their footprint by designing a hem stitch sewing machine right around 1893. So they came on the scene in the 1800s, but right at the end of the 1800s, and long after some of the other manufacturers were already making sewing machines. They came on the scene making the world's first hem stitch sewing machine, and it was produced in Steckborn, Switzerland. Steckborn, Switzerland, and it was capable of producing around 1,000 stitches per minute. That was really fast sewing back in the late 1800s. In that time frame, 1,000 stitches per minute was like commercial industrial speed. And so right away, they got everyone's attention. They got everyone's attention with a machine that could sew that fast. And so then comes the year of around 1932, and Gegoff's sons, Fritz and Gustav, that's kind of fun to say, isn't it? Gustav. So again, being a family business, it only makes sense that he would have been grooming his kids to take over the business. So again, around 1932, Fritz and Gustav step into the space, and they're like, I don't think we want to call it Gegoff sewing blah, blah, blah anymore. And they started looking around the beautiful country of Switzerland. And lo and behold, they looked at one of their mountains, which happened to be called Mount Bernina. And they said, hey, let's call it Bernina. And so in the 1930s, it went from Gegoff, blah, 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 to Bernina. So they had a similar situation like Janome, where many, many, many years after establishing themselves, they did what we call today rebranded themselves. And they started calling themselves Bernina. Yeah. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Bernina. Bernina. Yeah. And one of the successors that followed the original founder, Karl Friedrich, Karl Friedrich actually climbed Mount Bernina, and it was one of the granddaughters that stepped into the space. And if someone wants to research that real quick for us, we heard about her in one of the summaries last night that Susie and I watched in preparation for this. But this granddaughter eventually stepped into the space and took the company over, and was really, really in all the big newspapers and everything, because back at that time, a woman leading the company as the CEO and president was unheard of in Switzerland. All the men wanted to be in charge. And this granddaughter of the original founder, Karl Friedrich Gegoff, took the company over and went on to do some great things in introducing computerized sewing and doing some great things with machines and developing machines like the Activa Model 130, 131, and 140. And she really led the company down the path and brought it into the future of what sewing was going to become. Well, let's see. A couple other dates just to throw out there for fun. A year before I was born in 1963, the company produced its 1 millionth zigzag sewing machine and introduced the world's first knee-activated presser foot lifter. Now, these days, most of the machines, and even one over to the right now, this brother machine that I'm going to be showing you soon, this brother machine right over here, they all started adding these knee lifters, right? That's where it goes right there. They started introducing all these knee lifters that you could slide into the front of the machine, so you wouldn't have to raise the presser foot lever by reaching to the back of the machine. People love convenience. People love convenience. And so Bernina was actually the very first to introduce this idea of a presser foot lifter. So if you didn't know that, and you're looking at your machine now and you're saying, well, we've got that, I've got that on my Genome. I've got that on my machine, whatever it is. You can give credit and thanks to Bernina because they developed it a year before I was born in 1963. They also, in the 1970s, introduced an iconic model. I don't believe that I've had one. Maybe I did over the years on the workbench, but the Bernina 830 was released in the 1970s and became the most successful model and the most noted mechanical workhorse of any machine that Bernina ever made. So if you have a chance to get your mitts on a Bernina Model 830, do it. It's really quite a coveted machine and a machine that others would be envious of if you added it to your personal collection. Yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to share about Bernina. I think it is. Yeah. So we had several people describing the rotary versus oscillating hook. And I'm so grateful for the leadership team because oftentimes others that are in the live stream or in the premiere are nervous. They're nervous about stepping out of the shadows into the light. And our leaders will always take that step forward for the family and answer that question so that people have a, it's all about gaining knowledge, isn't it? It's all about learning something new so you can then become a fellow teacher and share it with somebody else, right? I think that's the big deal. So the other thing I'll highlight real quick for you is when this machine came to the workshop, it had this thread on it. And I always say this, that needles are a big deal, thread is a big deal, and there are threads out there that are really, really good for certain applications. There's threads out there that are not as good for certain applications and will cause you a lot of headaches. And especially as they get into the specialized 100% polyester threads that tend to have a little bit of a stretch factor to them, they can create a lot of challenges and a lot of headaches for the end user if they don't understand what's happening, especially when it comes to trying to maintain tension properly. Well, this particular thread, I'm just going to set it right over here. I'll set it right there. This particular thread is one of those specialty threads, and it's not made by Gutermann. It's not made by Susie. What's that other brand that we were talking about? Is it Sulky or something like that? They make a lot of the specialty embroidery type threads as well. But this particular one it's got a really long name, and I'm probably going to make it more complicated than it needs to be. But it's produced by Mettler. Has anyone ever heard of Mettler before as far as a thread maker? It's Mettler, Mettler. I almost feel like I'm doing the baloney song. Mettler. My baloney has a first name. It's Oscar. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So this particular thread is a Mettler thread, Mettler, and it's a metroscene. 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 So it's a Mettler metroscene thread, and it's held in high regard in a lot of circles. A lot of people like it because it's supposed to be very, very strong. It's supposed to produce very little lint, but it can also, because of the nature of the way it's manufactured and being 100% polyester, and also the cone design itself, which I'll bring that closer to the camera to show you, depending on the way that you put this thread, especially if it's being horizontally fed, it can cause a lot of problems, including shredding of thread, breaking of thread, and everything else under the sun. But along with that, it can also produce a beautiful stitch. on certain types of materials, particularly if it is used on heavier materials. It does a real nice job. But the fraying factor, the breaking factor, um, it also, when it's produced on the larger cones, they tend to put it a little bit too tight on the cone. You remember recently I was showing a machine and I talked about the fact that all of a sudden the thread, as it was coming off of that cone, it kind of locked and it emergency stopped the machine. You guys remember that? It caused an emergency stop on the machine. And these little things can become big things all of a sudden. So if I show you a closer shot of this particular spool, if you're running it vertically like this, a lot of these things are not as big of a deal. But if you're running it horizontally, like we would be doing on this Activa Model 130, and let's just say that you set it up to sew, you get your thread all set up right, you slide it on that horizontal mount right there, you start sewing, and all of a sudden your thread starts fraying and breaking. And you're like, what the heck is going on? It's because right on the edge, and I believe the Gutermann and the Sulkys do something similar, they've got this little easy twist lid. You can twist this and then you can pull the thread out, and it's an alternative to a lot of the other thread spool type designs. But there remains then a little ridge. I'm going to see if I can show you that little ridge. There remains a little ridge then. See that opening right there? Once you twist that lid and you get that thread out, you're stuck with this little ridge. And that little ridge can catch that thread and does catch that thread, especially when you're horizontally feeding it. And it can happen if you face it this way. It can happen if you face it the other way. And all of a sudden you're thinking there's something mechanically wrong with your machine, but it's a matter of the thread is getting caught in that little opening that occurs naturally when you twist your thread and you open it up for using it. So just be mindful of that. Check for the basic things before you automatically conclude you've got a major mechanical issue with your machine. If you're using some of these specialty threads, they can do a great job, especially when they're being vertically fed, but they can create a lot of headaches as well. Okay, a lot of headaches. So I'm going to show you a brand new product that we're going to try in this live stream today. A lot of people have tried different types of products. They're just cool to try, and they're fun to tell others that you're trying them. And I saw this at Walmart, and I had to pick it up so I could try to put it to use. It's called Premium Fabric Glue. Don't sew it, speed sew it. So apparently, with this tube right here, we can give up sewing entirely. We don't even have to do this live stream today. I could take all of the sew-offs that I was going to do, and I can speed sew them with this magical little tube that is fabric repair, home decor, crafts. They've been making it for 50 years. See that? They've been making it for 50 years. Has anyone used these fabric type glues? What has your experience been? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Are they messy? Are they as strong as a sewing stitch? I would doubt that they are, but maybe. So it says here, it's pliable and washable after you use it. It bonds in minutes. We're going to put that to the test today, see if it actually bonds in minutes. It's strong. Look at, they show a big muscle there. It's strong and durable. And it extends the life of your clothing. So I'm going to put on some music right now, and I'm going to try this product, Speed Sew. Apparently they've been doing this stuff for 50 years. And I'm going to see how well it works. We're going to put some of this on 2 pieces of material, 100% cotton. We're going to put it on 100% cotton. We're going to let it sit for several minutes, and then we're going to see if we can pull it apart. Because it says that it sets, it bonds in minutes. Now, I bet you the fine print on the back of here probably says, okay, it's kind of like the JB Weld. It does its initial bonding in minutes, but to fully cure, let's see if I can find that on here. How long does it need to be to fully cure? They got directions in every language under the sun. Squeeze speed sew into a dish or hard surface, spread using a toothpick or finger. For thicker material, apply to both surfaces. Press the 2 surfaces together. Hold or clamp firmly until dry. Well, when is it going to be dry? How do we know when it's dry? Because they said it bonds in minutes, but we have to wait until it's fully dry. Maybe if I dry it with a hair dryer, right? If I pull out a hair dryer and zap it with a hair dryer, maybe then we could see if this stuff works. But I'm just curious if anyone else has used specifically Speed Sew, which apparently has been around for a long time, or they used another fabric glue. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Type it into the live chat. Any of you that are in the shadows right now, if this doesn't draw you out, and really, really get you either excited to say, this stuff sucks, I hate it, it's garbage, or the opposite, I threw my sewing machine out the window because I like to speed sew. Do you like to speed sew? I almost feel like I'm saying speed sew. Do you like to speed sew in Speedos? I don't think, I'm probably going to get in trouble for that. But Speedos are a type of material underwear, I guess, aren't they? I've never had them, but anyway, do you like to speed sew? Do you believe in this stuff? Do you think it's junk? Type it into the live chat and let us know what you think, okay? So I'm going to get this set up and get a little bit of music on, and then we're going to try to speed sew, see how this stuff works. Yeah, I'm curious. All right, a little bit of music. A little bit of music. Speed sew, that's fun to say. Am I done with the music already? Oh, that's disappointing. All right, I'll spin it back. We're going to listen to this one more time. Oh, wow, I spun a leak in the bottom. It's got a leak in the bottom. Uh-oh. Look at that. Wow. All I did was open this stuff up. All I did was open this stuff up, and the metal that they use for these must be incredibly thin because it just started leaking on the bottom. Look at that. I got it all over my hand. So my feedback as far as speed sew for 50 years, use better metal to hold your stuff in, because all I did was take it out of the package and it started leaking right away. I'm probably going to end up, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to use JB Weld to seal this opening so I don't lose this whole tube of stuff. What a mess. Holy mackerel. All right, let me set this over here. I'm going to try to get it off my hand. Jiminy crickets. Jiminy crickets. All right. I'm going to give this every opportunity to succeed. I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to use my little pipe cleaner here. Kind of mix it up. It's real liquidy. It's not as, I expected something thicker, but it's incredibly liquid. It kind of, it doesn't seem to have as much thickness to it as I would expect. So I'm going to take a piece of this cotton material right here, and I'll put a couple of dabs going down. Put it right on the top. Put it on both sides, like they said. They don't tell you how thick to put it on. You know what I mean? They don't say to put it on thick, put it on light. I think more instructions would be helpful to me, at least. All right, I'll leave that like that for a second. Drop my pipe cleaner in there. Yeah, this stuff is still oozing out all over the table. Maybe I just bought a bad one, huh? Now we're going to fold this stuff over. And they said to press it down or clamp it down. So I'm going to kind of push on it. I think I put it on too thick because it's kind of oozing through a little bit. This is messy stuff to work with. Has anyone else had an experience where they think that this stuff is real messy? I think I'd rather sew and get a nice clean stitch line than use this glue stuff, but I'll give it a try. Now I got it all over my workbench. I just don't want to get it all over Jennifer's machine. All right, so I clean that. And I'm assuming when it dries that it doesn't leave that little stain mark on there. You see that stain mark right now because it's still damp. Damp that up a little bit. So, oh yeah, I got it all on my fingers now. All right, so we will set this off to the side. We'll set this off to the side. Now I wasted all this stuff. See, I put too much in there. I was putting it in there like I was putting a saddlebag on or something like that. So I can get this wiped out of here. It's got a real nasty, I'm just being honest. It's got a real nasty odor to it too. When I work with different epoxies in that for different repairs on sewing machines and that, you know, they all have a smell to them, but this one has a real noxious smell to it. I don't know if any of you have had fabric glues or other things like that that just have a real strong smell, but this is definitely in that category. So it says it bonds in minutes. So if someone wants to be my time checker, and about 15 minutes from now, get my attention, call me, text me, or whatever. We'll give it around 15 minutes to set up because they actually have some JB welds that will set up in 5 minutes. So we're going to give this 3 times the amount of time, since the packaging says that it bonds in minutes. We're going to give it 15 minutes from this point right now. So I think that would be, what, about 20 minutes after 10 Eastern time? 20 minutes after 9 Central time. We'll grab these 2 little ends, like this piece right here that we're going to sew. We'll grab these 2 little ends and we'll try pulling it apart and seeing how well it bonds. Because it says it bonds in minutes, we're going to give it 15 minutes. Maybe, is that long enough? Should we give it longer than 15 minutes? And then we'll compare it. This is our bonded piece to a piece that we will sew on this ACTIVA 130. And we'll see how it does. So I'm going to set these off to the side right now, kind of get them out of the way. But apparently I bought the wrong one on the shelf, because as soon as I took it out of this container, it had an opening. See, it's actually leaking inside of there too. Yeah. I bought a lemon. Or something. Yeah, it's a mess. Well, if it bonds in minutes, hopefully it'll plug its own hole and I'll be able to save the rest of this tube if it's worth saving. If it's worth saving. All right, let me get it off of. It just gets on everything, doesn't it? It's messy stuff. I feel like I need to do house cleaning now. Well, it definitely sticks to that. All right. I'll clean that later. So we'll try this fabric glue, see what we think of it. And yeah, we'll give some feedback to the manufacturer on the experience that we had, at least during this live stream. All right, so let's start to get into this Bernina 130 a little bit. All of you have been very patient. So I'm going to walk you around the machine a little bit, kind of show you some things on it. Talk a little bit about the setup of the machine. We'll take a look at the threading of it. I've already talked a lot about the bobbin and the setup of the bobbin, that when it's in the machine, it needs to be turning counterclockwise as the thread is being pulled, not turning clockwise, which is what the manual tells you. When the thread is being pulled, the manual says it'll turn clockwise, but it's actually the opposite. So just be aware of that. So a well-built machine. It does have plastic housing on the outside, but the inside is, I mean, it's rock steady as far as the design and the setup and the quality of the materials. The one thing I found interesting is, as I was looking at the inside cage design of this machine that gives it the strength and gives it the fortitude, that it did not respond to a magnet. So it's a heavy machine. It's not a light machine at all. It's a heavy machine, but it is not a ferrous metal that the Swiss use. So if anyone wants to do a little bit of research and type in what kind of metal does Bernina use on their machines from the late 1990s, early 2000s, I'd be curious to know, because it's not a traditional metal that has a ferrous response to a magnet. It's a non-magnetic type metal. But whatever kind of metal it is, it's incredibly strong. Is it magnesium? I don't think so. It's too heavy for that. Is it some other type? I've got no idea. So if anyone wants to dig into that a little bit and see if they can get some answers for us, that would be great. The other thing that the Swiss like to do is they like to do things a little bit differently. Normally, this surface right here, the bed surface, would be a chromed metal or a chromed aluminum, maybe something lightweight and thin. The Swiss instead use stainless steel. They actually use stainless steel on the bed surface itself. Now, being stainless steel, I would think, yeah, we're not getting a, whoops, that was exciting. We're not getting a, ha ha, we're not getting a, the only response we're getting is from the plate itself right here, which easily comes up with a magnet. Comes up very, very easily. That was kind of cool. So yeah, stainless steel here, some non-ferrous metal. It's one of our cameras going off. Some non-ferrous metal on the inside as far as the cage of the machine, giving it its strength and stability. We've also got the same kind of material right here as stainless steel on the front of the guard where our thread goes through to get into the tension discs and everything. Our presser foot pressure over here on the front of the faceplate. And again, I can't call this a nose plate. If anyone else has seen that trend where someone's trying to be a rebel, these have always been called a faceplate from the beginning of time. And now someone is going around trying to call them nose plates. I bet you they probably have one of those piercing studios where they're trying to do sewing and also pierce people's noses or something, maybe. I don't know. But at any rate, the faceplate area, you've got presser foot pressure. Again, the big deal about presser foot pressure is as you go through thicker, heavier materials or multiple layers, you want to increase this. And on this particular machine, increasing means that you're going to be going and turning it counterclockwise. So if you want a lighter touch, you'll turn it clockwise all the way up into this region over here. If you want heavier presser foot pressure, you're going to be rotating it counterclockwise down into this region over here. Okay? And if you want to try to service this area of the machine, a lot of lubrication points in there. There's a single screw right here, but it takes a special hex wrench to get it out. So if you have hex wrench type tools, you'll be able to dig deeper into your Bernina. They don't use a flathead. They don't use a Phillips type style. They use a very specialized type screw where you need to have that type of wrench to get it open. Then they've got a thread cutter right here. They also have a specialized bulb in here. You cannot upgrade these with the bayonet style LED lights like I love to do. You're stuck with a high output light that also generates a lot of heat when it's being operated. I can feel the heat actually coming through the side of the casing right there. Yeah, we're at almost 93. Can you see that? We're at almost 94 degrees. Because it doesn't have a traditional LED light in there that will be less heat producing. So if you're in a closed space with a Bernina like this, that little light bulb, it's almost a halogen style light bulb, is going to generate a lot of heat in your sewing space, just so you're aware of that. I think that that's a little bit of a detractor. But again, in the late 1990s, early 2000s, that was probably the most convenient way to put a bulb into the machine. And again, you can take off this faceplate. If it ever burns out, you can replace it yourself. Just contact Bernina and they'll have the replacement part. I didn't think it put out as much light as some of the other machines. If I shut off a couple of my shop lights real quick, you'll kind of get an impression of how much light it puts out. It gives you a little bit of light over here by the plate, but pretty much dark all the way over here. So if you don't have auxiliary lighting and you're relying just on this light that Bernina puts in, it's kind of lacking a little bit, in my opinion. It's lacking. So that would be the feedback to Bernina as you develop more and more sewing machines with your family business. Focus on lighting. Lighting is especially critical as we get older, isn't it? As we get older, good lighting can make or break how long we're able to sew. we can develop fatigue, we can develop eye strain, and we can just get frustrated. We can get headaches. A number of things can happen if the light is insufficient. And I think that would be an area of improvement that Bernina could certainly look at if they're looking to make things better for the customer. And I know they are. I know they're absolutely committed to try to improve things for the customer all the time. But you can see as I turn on my LED lights, all of a sudden that space just lights up. And that's really what you want with your sewing light as well, isn't it? You want to be able to turn that light on, just as the ladies over in La Follette told me, the Genomes that I serviced for them, that I was able to upgrade the lights, and they go, oh my gosh, it's night and day. It's so different. It's so much more enjoyable to sit down to that machine with those LED upgraded lights in there. So they love them over in La Follette, Tennessee at the Senior Center. And I'm sure Bernina continues to look at improving their lighting systems for their machines. They're going to have even more happy customers. People already love Bernina because they always listen to the customers. So yeah, improve your lighting system. I think you can do better. So you might also notice as we look at this area right here where the plate comes up very, very easily with a magnet. This is a high shank sewing machine. We don't see a lot of those, do we? It's a high shank sewing machine. The presser foot is high shank. So be aware of that as you're looking to do sewing, that this is going to take a very specialized foot for this Swiss-made Activa 130. Yeah, I'll kind of just move across the machine a little bit. Here you can see that oscillating hook system right there inside, sort of. Let me grab my flashlight. I'll light it up for you a little bit. Yeah, there's our oscillating hook with that Class 15 style bobbin case. And you've got a quick release right over here on the left side, a quick release right there that you can push to the left, and then this will drop down and you can remove that whole oscillating hook system to get that lint out and to service and to lubricate it as well. It just makes sure when you put it back in that you push it all the way in so that it locks in place. And again, as this bobbin is turning and that thread is being pulled by the machine, it's going to be turning counterclockwise, not clockwise like the manual implies. Okay? Let's see, what else? A very interesting screen display on this. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. Here we've got our upper tension control right here. You can see we're set right around 6 1/4 right now. And we can go all the way up to, I believe it's 9 as our top. And you just rotate this either way, depending on what results you're getting. If you're getting real loose stitching, like Jennifer was getting here, then that's going to tell you that you're in trouble. You're just in trouble, okay? If you get stitching like that. But in all seriousness, if you're getting stitching that's loose on the bottom, you generally will increase this. If you're getting stitching that's loose on top, you're going to be backing this off so that that bobbin case can pull down harder. But in some cases, you will have to adjust that bobbin case because otherwise you're going to have to push this to the extreme. And you don't want to have to do that. You want to have a margin for flexibility. Yeah, I'll push that handle down. And here you see we've got a horizontal feed on the thread. And always make sure that your spool holder is going to be a little bit wider than your spool itself. So that if you have a situation like this, where you're feeding a thread like this, and the thread is catching on that little opening and it's breaking your thread or fraying your thread, a larger spool is going to push that thread higher up so that it's flowing over the top of that area that it's catching on. And you can see right now on Jennifer's machine, we've got a spool retainer that is about the same size as the spool. That's not ideal. You always want to try to put a spool retainer on there that's a little bit higher in profile than your spool so that you can avoid any rough spots on the edge of your spool of thread that might be having a tendency to grab that thread, cause fraying, cause breaking, causing emergency stops if you've got that feature on your machine as well. So yeah, just be aware of that as you're working with your sewing machine. Get a bigger one, put it on there, keep that thread flowing freely above those rough edges or those catch points that can be on the spools of thread, okay? Here's our bobbin winder. Just put that bobbin on there, push it over, and then it will automatically disengage. I wish I could automatically disengage our cameras sometimes because they go off at the worst times. And again, for winding a bobbin, it's a little bit tricky on this one. According to the book, we're actually going to be coming through this thread point on the back right here. And then we're going to be following the arrow by coming around clockwise around our tensioner like this, one time, not twice. And then we're going to be coming back to our spool over here. And then we're going to be winding that thread clockwise as well so that we can then wind that bobbin. But again, the book shows coming through this thread point and then coming here clockwise across and then clockwise around here as well. And I'm not going to be winding a bobbin in this live stream, so just be aware of how to do that. Right here, we've got an easy access reverse. We got that right there. Some of the machines that I presented to you recently, we got all kinds of bells over here. The Swiss keep it a little bit cleaner and leaner. They just have a quick reverse over here. And we've got our control screen right here. I'm going to see if I can bring over my pedestal and make a couple of changes so you can kind of see what it does. See here, I'm going to tip over. Okay, I think you can see the screen sort of, kind of. I'll see if I can move it even a little bit closer. So this has almost like an LED screen. It's kind of unique. You don't see a lot of these screens like this, but it's what they decided to do over in Switzerland. It almost looks like, kind of the tech area of your car where you're looking at your RPMs going up and all that. And it kind of has that feeling almost when you're looking at it. But as you're making different changes over in this area right here on stitch width, which is this control right here, needle position, and also stitch length. So stitch width, needle position, stitch length. As you're making changes to that, you'll see things changing on the screen as well and displayed as an LED type picture. Yeah, you can see that real clear right now. You can also see that we have our foot controller attached as well. It's got that cool little foot there. So as I make changes to this, let's say I'm going to do a zigzag stitch. The first thing I'll do is I'll select the zigzag stitch, which is way down over here, number 2. I'll select the zigzag stitch. And then as I'm making changes to the width, watch what happens to the screen over here. Make sure you have a clear vision of that. Yep, you do. So I'm going to go up in the stitch width. You can see that this is working its way over now, this little blinking bar thing. Keep going. All the way up to about 5. Then I can go the opposite way and decrease it to make it less wide, to make it more narrow. You can see that little LED display is working its way all the way back to the left. Give you an idea of where you're set. So right now we're at like 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2 approximately, 3, etc. And after you get done playing with it, like I was just doing, they don't want you to have to hit this to get all the way back to where you started, or hit this to go all the way back to you started. So they have a clear button right over here. You just push the clear button and then it goes automatically back to the default. So let me see if I can show that to you at the same time. Go back a little bit here. Kind of watch over here. And it looks like the default for Bernina on the stitch width is going to be right around 3, a little bit short of 3 on their little scale thing over here. And the same thing applies as you're making changes for stitch length. So if I'm making changes to stitch length over here, I want a longer stitch. Kind of watch what happens over here on the right side. You see me incrementally going up. Now I'm up to 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and all the way to the max. Keep going. All the way to the max of 5. So our stitch width maximum is 5. Our stitch length maximum is 5 as well. And again, because I just goofed it all up, now if I want to change that, I just hit that clear button and it takes it back down to its normal default, which is about 1.5, something like that. You can see it also displays the stitch that you have. Right now we have stitch number 2, which is the zigzag. And so it's going to show you the number 2 on there as far as the display. It's a very simple screen, and I think it's a very unique screen. And the Swiss like to be unique. Let's just face it, they do. So when they developed this back, as Jenny had found, as they developed this back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, they would have said, hey, no one else has an LED type screen. Let's do that. And they would have done that. So as we change stitches, just come out a little bit more as I change stitches. If I want to do a straight stitch, I just push 1 and then our screen will show a 1. And it'll give you an automatic default. I can choose any of the other stitches along here and it'll show you that numeric value again. And on this machine, we have about, let's see, 13, 14. We've got about 14 or 15 stitches that we can possibly do. One of them, number 6, which depending on how you set the machine up, will give you the option of either a mending type zigzag stitch. I think it's actually a 3-point zigzag or a stretch straight stitch in that one position. All the other stitches that I can see at least are going to have a singular option. Number 6 is the only one that gives you 2 different stitch options. Let's see, what else? Oh, let me ask you a quick question. If you were to guess the size of the motor on this model 130, this Activa Bernina 130, what size motor do you think this machine has? What size motor? So go ahead and type that into the live chat if you would. Type that into the live chat if you would. And yeah, and then I'll try to answer some other questions. I think we have a couple questions popping up as well. Susie is concerned. Susie is not concerned about high shank feet. She's concerned about a Big Bird costume. Oh, Susie, you're gonna have to stay after class, kiddo. You're gonna have to stay after class. All right, let me make sure that's clear. It is. Okay. So 5.0, a little bit too small. A little bit too small. And this is a trick question, by the way. This is a trick question because this particular model has a range as far as the amperage of what they say the motor will put out depending on the type of sewing you're doing. In other words, it's almost like an overdrive machine. It's an overdrive machine. If you've ever been driving through real steep mountains, and as you're going up that mountain, all of a sudden you'll hear your motor just growl. It'll just go, roar. It'll kick into like an overdrive to accommodate that terrain. Well, this machine by the Swiss has the equivalent of an overdrive type motor in it that will actually give you a range of amperage tolerance. And when I tell you the range, you're not even going to believe it. You're not even going to believe it. But I believe the Swiss are honest people, and that's what they have on the back nomenclature plate on the back of this machine. And actually, you know what I'll do is I'll send the answer. I'm going to send the answer over to Tim I don't text Tim very often. I'll see if I can text the answer over to Tim. I can actually hear the garbage truck going by the workshop right now. And as it's coming up our incredibly steep hill, you can actually hear that overdrive on that truck kicking in, because the hill is putting so much demand on that motor, it kicks into a higher gear, or a lower gear, I should say. It kicks into a lower gear in order to accommodate the lift of that heavy truck. And now the dogs hear the garbage guy outside too. 0.85 amps is what Teresa is saying. That's another really good guess. And you know what? Teresa is not wrong. Teresa is not wrong, but I'm going to see if I can text Tim real quick. See if I can text Tim. If I can't find Tim's number, I'll send it to Teresa. Probably with our microphone, you can hear that truck now. It's continuing up that real steep hill, continuing up that real steep hill, and you can hear that growl of the motor. Growl of the motor trying to get that heavy truck up that steep hill. All right, I'm still working on finding Tim's number. Hold on a second. Still looking. I don't text Tim very often. I text Teresa more often than Tim. Ah, found him. I found you, Tim. I found you. All right, I'm going to try to text the answer as far as this motor range that the Swiss are declaring that this machine has, and you're going to be a little bit blown away. You're going to be a little bit blown away. Okay, I just sent it to Tim. Hopefully Tim has his phone nearby. If Tim doesn't have his phone nearby, I'll send it to Teresa. But it's very, very unusual and unique for a manufacturer to give an amperage range for the motor because of the overdrive design of it, where it's designed where if you're sewing something crazy heavy, that motor is going to deliver that overdrive to try to get you through that sewing. It's very, very unusual. I can say that the Swiss machines are the only ones that I've seen an amperage range on for a motor. It's usually going to give you the peak. It's usually going to give you the peak. Okay, so I think Tim got it. I believe Tim got it. So in a little bit, Tim will type in the range that this motor on this Activa Model 130 by Bernina is said to be able to deliver by stepping up to the job and delivering more power when more power is needed. Let's see here. Also, I talked about in the history of Bernina, I talked about the history that they were the first to develop. Give me a second. I'm trying to look through my notes here. Yeah, 1 year before I was born, 1963. In 1963, Bernina was the first. And Tim, if you didn't get it for some reason, let me know. I'll text it. I'll text the answer to your lovely, lovely lady. I'll text it over to Teresa as far as the range of the motor. But it was in 1963 that Bernina developed that knee lift, so you didn't have to reach behind the machine to operate the presser foot. And on this particular machine, that's where that is right there. It goes right in there. You pull that little plug out, You slide your knee controller in, and instead of the knee controller operating the machine, it's going to operate that lift. And a lot of the commercial industrial machines have added that over time as well, because it's a lot more convenient to have access to both of your hands instead of having to adjust it back and forth. Yeah, Tim got it. So I can't think of any other machine off the top of my head, and I've worked on thousands of different machines. I can't think of any machine that has an amperage range for the motor other than this one. 0.6 all the way up to 0.6 all the way up to 1.4 as far as the amperage output of the motor in this machine. Very, very unusual, very unique to this company. Okay, let's look at the right side. Then we're going to finally get into this machine a little bit and actually put it to use. On the right side, we've got a couple of things. We plug our power cord in right there. I'm looking way across the room at the laptop, so hopefully I can see it. Our on-off switch right there. And then we've got a balancer, as the manual calls it. This is going to be for balancing patterns based on the materials and your setup and how you're sewing. If you're having problems with getting definition out of those patterns, this can be adjusted up or down. And the manual goes into a great deal of detail explaining how best to use this control. I'll see if I can find the page number, and that way, if you've got this machine, you can go right to that page and find it. And then we've got feed dog drop way over here. There it is. There's our feed dog drop. You push that button in to drop the feed dogs, and then you push it again to make those feed dogs pop back up again. Okay? So not a lot happening on this area on this side, but some crucial controls of the machine, some crucial controls. I'm just curious. It's way past our expiration on this material. Just curious how it's doing as far as bonding. Yeah, it's pretty strong. It's actually pretty strong. It's holding on pretty tight. Now, if I pull really hard, will I be able to pull it apart, or will I tear the material? That's the question. I'm going to apply a little bit more pressure, a little bit more pressure, a little bit more pressure. Starting to separate. It does hold it real strong, and I'm a pretty strong guy. I'm a pretty strong guy, and it did bond. I think we didn't let it go 15 minutes. We let it go probably almost a half an hour. So it did bond pretty well, but the only thing I'm not sure about is what it does to the material. What it does to the material here, and maybe I put it on too heavy. Maybe that was my fault, but it kind of stains the material as well. Has that been your experience working with these fabric glues? These fabric glues tend to ooze through and they leave a mark on there. Can that be washed out? Does it wash out? I don't know. I don't work with fabric glues. You know, as opposed to us actually stitching this, taking the same material, and say laying a straight stitch down on it. Actually, I don't want to do that because then that glue might get on my needle. Let me do this on the other piece that's clean. I don't want to gum up my needle. So if we do it like this, we'll do a stitch on the same type of material, 2 layers of that cotton material, and I'm going to adjust my straight stitch maybe a little bit shorter. Let's see, I'll set it on straight stitch. And I've got to get my foot control back out. I pushed it underneath the workbench. And I think we'll adjust our straight stitch down just a little bit to about 1.5. So now if I try stitching this as opposed to the fabric glue, let's see how we do. All right, stop right there. So I just put our sewing fast on there with this Bernina Model 130. We laid down some pretty tight stitching, probably about 1.3 as far as the setting of the machine. Clip our threads, and I'll see if I can see how much force I have to apply this to pull it apart compared to the fabric glue. All right, so we got it like this. I'm going to do the same thing. Grab it right there. All right, I'm applying a lot of pressure against that right now. We did a shorter stitch, so it's holding it together. I'm stretching it, but it's not giving yet. I'm going to take a deep breath and see if I can really rip this stuff apart. I should be able to, I hope. I think it's ripping the material, actually. I just bumped the camera. That's as far as I can go with this. So I'll be honest with you. I'm sure that fabric glue has its helpful applications. I'm sure it does. But I would much sooner sew with a sewing machine instead of fast sew. Because I just tried ripping that apart. I was able to tear the fabric a little bit, but the stitching seemed to be a lot more effective than this fabric glue. Plus, it doesn't make the fabric all nasty like that. Yeah. Anyway, we gave it a try. And I didn't read all the comments to see what people think of this stuff. I didn't read all the comments to see what people think of stuff like this. But there may be some people that are diehard believers in speed sewing using fabric glue and versus sewing. But I can't imagine that they would. Maybe they do. Okay. So I'm going to set that off to the side. And let's actually put this machine to work now. We've been doing a lot of things, covering a lot of things. Covering a lot of things. It looks like Susie posted a link for the manual. And I'm going to go to the manual right now and talk to you about that balancing, where it goes into there and talks more about the balancing factor. I marked all these pages. I'm trying to see which page it might be on. So it looks like it's going to be on page, it doesn't have a page number. Oh, page number 16. Page number 16, if you want to look at that link that Susie sent and learn a little bit more about how you can use that balancing control that's on the right side of the machine, it's on page 16 and talks to you about how to use that control and when you use it and when you make changes to it to have the best possible outcome on page 16. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me do this. The piece of material that Jennifer had sewed when she was having all the issues is denim. So I'm going to see if I can do some stitching on denim to get us out of the gate here with this machine. I'm going to do, let's see, what do I have? 4 layers here. I got 4 layers of denim. It kind of looks like that. And we'll see if we can lay down a straight stitch on that. And then we'll lay down a zigzag on it. And we'll see if we're going to add some additional stitching to that as well. I'm always sewing cotton. I'm always sewing leather, different types of leather. So let me see if we can, I'm going to increase my presser foot pressure just a little bit, which is what I just did. All right, let's set it up over there. And I do have cotton available. I don't want to launch with cotton. I'd rather launch with the denim. heavy grade denim, since that's what Jennifer was sewing on, or at least the sew off that she gave us. And again, we're using, yeah, hopefully we don't get anything like that. That's kind of scary, isn't it? Both sides of it are scary. Yeah, both sides of it are scary. Even this side, let's say that's the, I don't think it would be the top stitch. I think that would be the lock stitch. Even the lock stitch looks horrible on that sew off. So we'll see what we can do. And actually, you know what? I will start us out with 2 layers, and then we'll go up to 4 layers. Matter of fact, I will do this. I will actually cut. Where is my scissors? There they are. I'm just going to cut this. We'll lay down a straight and a zigzag on 2, and then we'll jump into some of the other sew offs after that. And yes, I am using my my Guggenheim 9-inch professional tailoring shears. And I know that Stephen that works with Guggenheim, he's kind of their spokesperson. They're doing a special sale, or they did a special sale maybe over the holiday, and I believe it's still continuing. But you'll want to check out their site, Guggenheim, and see whether or not there are any deals to be had that you want to check out. Okay, so we'll do a straight stitch, and then we'll do a zigzag through 2 layers of denim. I'm hoping we get a result that looks different than this. Either side, yikes. And then we'll jump into some other fun sewing. I think I'll start with the straight stitch. I'm going to go to a fairly long straight stitch. I'm bumping up my volume here. I don't know if you probably can't see that from all the way over there. I'm going to bump my straight stitch all the way up to the longest that I possibly can. So we're at the max straight stitch now. And yeah, let's see what we get. Let's see how we do. And again, when you adjust stitches to much longer, much shorter, etc., you may have to make adjustments to your tension. The tension will be impacted. It will be impacted as you're going to the extreme on a super wide zigzag, a super long straight stitch, whatever it is. So just be ready for that. You might have to do a little tweaking. All right, so here's our long straight stitch. See how we do. All right, here we go. And I haven't been holding the thread. Again, we're looking at an oscillating hook. I talk about the difference in the hook systems. The oscillating hook, because it moves like a pendulum, it's going to really, really yank on that thread when you launch. So it wouldn't be a bad idea. It wouldn't be a bad idea to hold on to the thread when you launch. But I didn't have any issues when I was doing this off camera. So I'm going to trust that the Swiss technology has improved on that. So you don't have to do what you do with the Japanese machines, the Japanese clone machines in particular. You got to really hold on to that thread. Otherwise you get a bird nest on the bottom. We're just going to trust that Swiss technology has hopefully overcome that issue. So here goes a straight stitch, and then we'll follow it up with a zigzag. Okay, here we go. Yeah, and you can see this machine as well. I didn't mention it, but it has an automatic needle up position, which can be real helpful. Yeah, it can be real helpful. Wow, that's a big stitch. That's a big stitch. It's not quite as large as the ones that we just did on those Swedish beauties for TJ, Tatiana, Juliet, but it's a big one. It's a big one. And again, as you go to the extreme on stitches, you may just have to recognize you might have to tweak that puppy a little bit. So here's what I'll do is I'll do the zigzag, and then we'll look at both of these stitches, okay? Get that back into position. And now we're going to be changing off camera over here on the control. I'm going to be pushing number 2 to get the zigzag. And I'm going to try to go to a super wide zigzag. Again, that might create some tension issues on the bottom of the material. So we might have to be prepared to bump up our upper tension a little bit so it pulls up harder to define that. We'll see what we get, and then we'll make that adjustment either actually or in our heads, knowing that we'll possibly have to do it. So I'm going to get us over there. It's number 2. We're going to go extremely wide. As we go extremely wide, you might notice that this bar across here is going up. So that's as wide as it'll go. Now we're going to look at the stitch length, which is way down here right now. We're going to go to the longest and the widest stitch that we can get. We're going to the extreme. So you can see that incrementally going up, 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 up. So now we're at the max width, the max length for this Bernina ACTIVA Model 130. Let's see how we do on this. Again, we might have some tension issues because we're pushing it to the max. We're pushing it to the extreme. And I'll tell you one thing I can brag about the Swiss. I can brag about the Swiss on a lot of things, but their feed dog design, it's a pyramid design, and other manufacturers copied it after they came out with it. The webbing of those teeth on the feed dogs is unprecedented. Unprecedented on machines that have that designed feed dog, primarily the Swiss and the Swedish. You get some beautiful, beautiful feed on materials as long as you've got the proper presser foot pressure. All right, so here goes our crazy, crazy zigzag. And because I've got a replacement bobbin case, I'm going to just give it a little turn. I just want to check my range. Give it a little bit of a turn manually, just to ensure that we're good to go, and we are. So I'm going to launch from here. And I had already done that, truthfully. When I selected this bobbin case replacement, I already checked the ranges, but I did that for your benefit, so that if you also go through the phase of having to use a different bobbin case in the machine, you set it at the extreme range, the widest it can possibly go, the longest it can possibly go, and then you always hand turn that balance wheel. Always hand turn it so that you know that you're not going to damage anything, okay? All right, here we go. Crazy mega size zigzag. Here we go. All right, I'm going to stop right there. You know what? We did pretty good. We did pretty good on the tension. I'll show both of these stitches to you now. We did pretty doggone good. I noticed just a little bit of a tweak on the bottom of the material where we could have bumped up that upper tension a little bit higher. But all in all, a really, really good result, because we went to the absolute extreme, the absolute max. So there's our top stitching. I'm just double checking. Yeah, that's our top stitching, I believe. Yeah, it should be. That's our top stitching. Beautiful, beautiful straight stitching. Beautiful zigzag as well. That Swiss engineering and Swiss precision really, really showcases itself nicely there, doesn't it? The longest straight stitch and the longest, widest zigzag that this machine can do. And it laid down just absolute page 34. Absolute page 34. Now, if we look at that lock stitching on the back, yeah, we could have done better on that straight stitch. Look at that super long straight stitch. We could have had more definition. So bumping up that upper tension would have given us an even lovelier straight stitch on the lock stitch side. And also on the zigzagging, you can see it right at the peak. Right at the peak, if you look real carefully, we've got just a little bit of the tension lacking, but not extreme, not bad. Not bad at all. And it's a simple adjustment, just bumping that upper tension up a little bit. Yeah, really quite nice. And again, that's the extreme. Most sewists are never going to push the machine that far. They're going to do a 3, maybe a 4 on the zigzag as far as width. They're going to do a 2 or a 3 maybe on the length. They're not going to push it all the way to the max. But I push it to the max so we can see how the machine does. And I'll tell you that compared to that, I'd say there's a slight A slight difference. A slight difference. Yeah, a slight difference. Also here. See how whether that's the lock stitch or the top stitch, see how underdefined it is? And then look at ours, even at the max. Absolutely gorgeous stitching. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. It's so exciting to see a machine make that pilgrimage from struggling to victory, absolute victory. Let me do something else real quick. I promised myself I would do so that any of you out there looking, and after you watch this, I get a lot of people that contact me after a live stream, and they say, I want to get that machine you showed. I'm really impressed by it. And again, remember, if you buy a machine on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, kind of like TJ did with that Swedish machine we just featured, you may get a lemon, kind of like the lemon I bought with that fabric glue already leaking out the bottom when I took it out of the package. So just be aware that what you see these machines doing after workshop magic is going to be potentially very, very different than what you get if you acquire exactly the same make and model. I mean, it's like a used car, depending on how they maintain that used car, the maintenance schedule, and the changing of the fluids and all the other factors. You can have a car from the same maker, from the same model, from the same manufacturing year, and one will be a sweetheart, one will be a rust bucket that you want to just lose it and forget about it. So get excited about what you see on this channel. That's wonderful. But just realize that the machines out there that haven't gone through the workshop magic are going to be an apple to an orange or an orange to an apple. Okay. But let me measure our workspace. And there is an extension bed that can go on this machine. They show it in the manual that Susie posted the link for. The extension bed is going to give you a lot more workspace. So we really don't have an accurate measure of what the total workspace would be. So I'm going to concentrate on the harp space. The harp space, again, is going to be from the needle to the pillar, from the bed to the bottom of the arm, and from the back to the front. And we're not going to, the back to the front is also going to be off because that extension bed that goes on here would give you more workspace in the front and back. But we'll get an approximate idea. So from needle to pillar, we're looking at about 7.5 inches. Needle to pillar for the harp space, 7.5 inches. Now our clearance vertically, if we're turning material or something like that, we're turning material from the bed to the bottom of the arm is going to be about just a little bit shy of 4.5 inches. 4.5 inches from here to here. The width is kind of pointless because we really don't know, as is the total length. But if we were just measuring the stainless steel workspace as we have it set up right now, you're looking at right around 3 inches. So I haven't seen the extension bed, but with an extension bed, it's probably going to bring it out about 2 inches, 2 inches. So you're probably looking at around 7.5 inches, maybe, as far as the width in the harp space. And I'm just estimating. So it's got a decent amount of space in here for working and for turning materials. It really does. It's quite a nice workspace on this machine. And I like the fact that the Swiss want to stand apart. So they don't give you a chrome surface. They give you stainless steel here. They give you stainless steel here. It's just a quality factor. It's like the machines that Domestic used to make back in the day. All of their areas, if you remember me sharing this in other live streams and videos, the Domestic sewing machine handmade each of their machines. They only made 20,000 a year, and areas like this, and then the balance wheel on a Domestic machine as well, with other appointments, were all. Anyone remember? What did they use? What did Domestic sewing machine company use instead of stainless steel or metal to cover all of their metallic type areas. What did they use? Does anyone remember? Domestic sewing machine company based, I believe, out of New Jersey. I think they were based out of New Jersey. What did they use to set themselves apart from the competition out there? What did Domestic use? Bernina uses stainless steel, which is lovely, beautiful, doesn't rust. What did Domestic use? Come on, you guys, wake up, wake up, wake up. What did Domestic use? What are you guys Googling it? Are you Googling what Domestic used? I hope not. I've said it several times. Several times. Nope, not chrome. That's a good guess, Teresa. Think about setting a dinner table for a special occasion like Thanksgiving, and you put out the best silverware. Think about the best silverware you would put out for Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that. What kind of silverware is that? What kind of silverware is that? Getting a quick sip of tea. Silver, yep. Yep. If you ever come across a domestic sewing machine, I would say pre-1960s, all of those areas that you normally would see chrome on are all silver plated. They actually melted silver down at the factory, and instead of dipping those in chrome or dipping those in some other substance, they actually dipped all of their metal parts on the domestic sewing machines in silver. So if that doesn't raise the bar, I don't know what does. Maybe after this live stream, maybe all of a sudden Bernina will announce featuring this special model for 125 years, because they're coming up on their 125-year anniversary, I believe, featuring this special emerald model, or whatever they would call it, Swiss chocolate model. Everything that you see that shines is silver. Yeah, do it. Do it, Bernina, because no one else is doing it now. No one else has done it since Domestic. I challenge you, when you step up that special model, I know you've got one in the wings right now. You're getting ready to roll out for the 125th anniversary. Make it silver. Make it silver. Now, if it were Donald Trump's sewing machine, he would make it gold, right? Donald Trump would make it gold. I'd like to see him go into the sewing machine business. That would be interesting. Maybe when he gets out of the presidency. That would be interesting. So back to a question that Tim threw out there. What is the benefit or disadvantage? What is the difference between a high shank sewing machine and a low shank sewing machine? If anyone in the audience wants to provide their answer, I don't know if they already did, but Tim, I think it asked that question. Go ahead and give your answer, and then I'll try to give my answer. But it really comes down to design and feature, and also how it rides over that presser foot bar and how much adjustments you can do. But beyond that, let's see if there's any other good answers that come out. Let's see if there's any others. Okay, let's do some more denim sewing. See if I can lay down a couple of fun stitches. And we're going to bump it up now from 2 layers up to 4 layers of denim. Since that's what Jennifer was sewing with, obviously, when the machine started having issues like that. See if we can bump it up by 2 times up to 4 layers of denim, and we'll lay down some other stitching on it. And then we can also put that fancy step-up motor to work that they're claiming can deliver between 0.6 and 1.4 amps. 0.6 and 1.4. So I'm going to lay down now stitch number 3, and I'm going to actually do something that I normally don't do. I'm going to actually look at the book and see what they call it. So I'm going to be sewing now. It's called the Very Overlock. V-A-R-I. I'm going to try doing a very overlock. And then I'm going to try doing a running stitch on 4 layers of denim. And then I'm going to try doing a securing stitch, number 5. I'm going to do 3, 4, 5 on 4 layers of denim. So we'll do the very overlock, we'll do the running stitch, and we'll do the securing stitch. Now, once all of you see these stitches that the Swiss are calling by these names, if you have another name, please, please, please throw it out there. You already know I love making up names for stitches. So if you come up with a cool name other than very overlock, running stitch, and securing stitch, do it. Do it, please. All right. So we'll go to stitch number 3. Going to hit that. And again, whenever you're changing anything on a sewing machine, stitch length, stitch width, stitch selection, always make sure your material is clear, or excuse me, make sure your needle is clear of the material. I better take one more sip of tea real quick. And then we're going to get into this and put this machine to work. I think I can hear Susie laughing in the other room. What are you laughing at, honey? What's funny? Ah, ha, ha, ha. Mr. Bean. He is such a jokester, isn't he? He's such a jokester, always getting into trouble. All right, so we're going to do stitch number 3. The Swiss are calling it the very overlock. Then we're going to do the securing stitch. No, then we're going to do the running stitch. Very overlock, running stitch. And then lastly, we'll do the securing stitch. I think so. Yeah, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go with the default. I'm not going to adjust. When I push one of these little buttons on Jennifer's machine, it's automatically going to give me a default. So it's giving me a default. It looks like on the stitch width of just shy of 4. On the stitch length, it's rather short, isn't it? It looks like it's right around 1. So it's going to be a very short, slightly wide stitch with this very overlock stitch. And I'll do all of these, and then we'll take a look at them, see how they do with these 4 layers of heavy grade denim. All right, here we go. Try to get my foot. It's a beautiful foot controller. I should show that to you real quick. It's a lovely foot controller as far as space. There it is right there, an original foot controller by Bernina. And this one is labeled type LV1. Remember we talk about what it said in the manual about with these different models, the 130, the 131, and the 140, you have to use either a type LV1 or a type LV2, nothing else. So we obviously have the correct foot controller as well to get our stuff done. All right. All right, so here comes the very overlock. Very overlock, V-A-R-I, very overlock. Let's see what we get. I wonder if I should clip it. Maybe I should clip it on the edges. I'll just put a clip on there just to kind of hold it in place a little bit. That way I have less excuses for sewing crooked, right? All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to stop right there. So this is what they're calling the very overlock. What would you call it? I'd call it the cone stitch, but hey, that's just me. There's the very overlock. Yeah. Some beautiful lock stitching and top stitching through 4 layers of denim. Let's do that next stitch now. I think that was called, what was that, the running stitch? Yeah, the running stitch. We're going to do the running stitch next through 4 layers of denim. So that's the very overlock. And now the running stitch. Yeah, let's try the running stitch now. And I'll go with their default again. Whatever default they give me is what I'm going to take. So on this running stitch now, number 4. Yeah, running stitch. I want to double check. I'm going to hit number 4. On the running stitch, it's giving me almost a max on the stitch width. So it's going to be a very wide stitch and a very, very short stitch. You can see our stitch length right there. Our stitch width up there is off the charts. And the little window below, I didn't specifically describe that. I talked about this control for needle position right here. But that little diagram right there is showing you where our needle position is. So right now we're in the center. If I adjust it left, or if I adjust it right. But again, most machines, if you try adjusting the needle position when there is a machine that's going to be laying down a zigzag or a needle swing type stitch, it's not going to let you do it because the pattern is going to override whatever width adjustments you try to make to that machine. So, and it's going to override whatever you say as far as the needle position. So, okay. So I hit clear. So that should be what the default was. So this is our running stitch now. Let me see if I can put the camera down. See if we can do the running stitch. Yeah, there's our first one, the very overlock. Okay, so the running stitch. Let's see what this one does. And I would just encourage you, listen to this machine run. You talk about Swiss engineering. She's a sweetheart now after going through the workshop magic. She's a sweetheart. I'm going to let those feed dogs take control. I'm going to take my hands off. That's impressive. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Yeah, I could see that definitely being a running stitch. They're calling that a running stitch. There's our very overlock and our running stitch. That's quite a stitch. I bet you that would hold better than fabric glue, that's for sure. Very, very nice. All right, one more stitch on these 4 layers of heavy grade denim. We do our last stitch, stitch number 5, which our Swiss friends are calling the securing stitch. The securing stitch. Yeah. Very, very nice. Okay, so number 5. Well, this is interesting. It almost looks like the setting, if I'm reading the settings correctly, it's going to be a straight stitch. It's not going to have any of this like we see over here, it's going to be a straight stitch. Maybe it's going to be a stretch straight stitch. We'll have to wait and see what we get. So number 5, the securing stitch. Let's see what this delivers. The securing stitch. Okay. All right, here we go. Nope, that's exactly what it is. It's a straight stitch, and it's just it's doing a back tack. At the initial point, it's doing a back tack of about 6 or 7 stitches to lock off that seam. So that's really called a seam locker, maybe, huh? But I think probably securing stitch is probably cooler than seam locker. But that's all we got. That's all we got out of it. You can see right there, as you look at the darker point, where it overlaid those stitches, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches to lock that seam in on the end. Yeah. So that is our 4 layers of heavy grade denim, getting a variety of different stitch lays on top of it and delivering some great results. I'll give you a closer look at those real quick, and then we'll move on to some other stitching. I've got cotton and I've got leather as well. I wanted to bring leather into the mix on this Swiss machine because I don't know that a lot of people that have Swiss machines, I don't know that they do a lot of leather sewing with them. Maybe they do. Okay, we'll do it like this. We'll do it upside down. So these are the 3 stitches we just did, and according to the book again, the very overlock, the running stitch. Is it running? Yeah, I almost said racing stitch, the running stitch. And then finally our last one, the securing stitch. Securing stitch. We'll take a look at all those. That's our top stitching right there. And again, they have denim needles. Who knew? I'm not using a denim needle. I'm using a 9014 universal needle. And so we could possibly improve the results even more by using a denim needle in this machine. And when you put a needle in this machine, you're going to put the flat side to the back. And the needle shank that houses the needle and holds it is very, very shallow on this machine, incredibly shallow. See if we can turn it this way and make it happier. There we go. Yeah, you can only push the needle in about maybe 2 millimeters on this Swiss machine. Only about 2 millimeters. I'm used to being able to slide them in, real deep, 3, 4, 5 millimeters. On this one, you can't do it. It doesn't let you do it. Yeah, all very interesting stitching. And lovely too. Here's our lock stitching on the back. One little hiccup right there where my thumb is. On that running stitch, we had a little bit of a thread feed issue. Could have been the way that I wound the bobbin, possibly. But all in all, some really, really lovely stitching there. And some really lovely stitching there as well. Very, very nice. So let's see here. I think I'll do one of the fancier stitches on this denim because I can imagine a denim purse possibly, maybe a denim purse, and being able to lay down a stitch like this on the shoulder straps or something like that, I think would be super cool. So we'll try to do that. See if I can lay down one of these cool stitches. Let's see, I'm just deciding which one. I think I'll do number 12. Number 12. And I didn't test this off camera. I did not test this off camera, so I don't know exactly what we're going to get. But I don't know if they give a name for this stitch or not. They do not give a name for this stitch. All they say is that 11 through 13 are going to be decoration stitches. Yeah, in the book on page 17. They name all the other ones, 1 through 9, We did the straight, we did the zigzag, we did the very overlock, we did the running stitch, we did the securing stitch. We did not do number 6, number 7, number 8. And then when you get above that, they just say decoration stitches. They don't give them names. So I guess we're going to have to give this stitch, a name possibly. With some of the other models, the model 131, they have similar looking stitches and they give them names there, but it doesn't appear that they do it for the model 130 for some reason. So I'm going to do this fancy stitch on the 4 layers of denim. We'll see if we can pull it off. And again, on the machine, it's going to be stitch number 12 right over here. Stitch number 12. And you can see by default, the stitches, the stitch settings are going to be an incredibly wide zigzag, almost at maximum. And then on the stitch length, we're looking at right around 2, a little bit over 2, where the maximum would be 5 as far as stitch length. So let's see what this looks like on 4 layers of denim. Yeah. And then we'll move into a couple other show-offs. And we'll try wrapping this live stream up in about another 20 minutes or so, something like that. Okay, let's see what we get here. A super fancy stitch going through a lot of denim. Here we go. You see that tri-motion at work? The tri-motion is manipulating those feed dogs forward and back. I'll speed it up just a little bit, but with an intricate stitch like this, you don't want to go too fast. Especially not through this much denim. All right, I'm going to stop right there. Oh my goodness, that's quite a lovely piece. I think you're really going to love this stitch. And again, they didn't give it a name, so we're going to have to name it. They had similar stitches in the later models of the Activa, the model 131 and the 140, but they did not give this one a name. They just said decorative stitch. So let's see what we end up naming it. Again, this is 4 layers of heavy grade denim. 4 layers of heavy grade denim. This is going to be our top stitching first. We'll look at that first. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh my goodness. Almost looks like a spider in the middle, doesn't it? Like a spider web. Wow. And imagine if we used an embroidery type needle. Imagine if we used an embroidery needle for that. Very, very nice. Let's look at the lock stitching on it now. We'll turn that over. This is our lock stitching on the back. I kind of oversewed a little bit too. 2 layers there. The rest of this is all 4, and I kind of oversewed a little bit. That's fine. Yeah, very nice. little bit of a loop right there too. See that? Yeah, very, very nice. I also did quite a bit of sewing on this Schmetz 9014 needle as well, and it's possible I might be getting to a wear point on that needle a little bit. So I might have to consider swapping it out for a new needle as well. But I think it's probably the way I wound the bobbin. I was rushing to get the bobbin wound and getting set up for this, and I may not have gotten it quite as even as I should have. So that happens sometimes. Okay, so I think I did all of this on cotton off camera on this machine. You can kind of see the way it presents on cotton. I may not do cotton again, just because we've already done it, but I could do it. I could certainly do it. But this stitch as well is one that we should consider doing. This is stitch number 13, I believe. We just did stitch 12, and then that's stitch 13 right now. It's quite lovely. So maybe I can get input from the audience. What material should we do stitch 13 on? Stitch 13 is that top row with like the butterfly thing going on. Should I do that on cotton? Should I do it on denim? 4 layers of denim? Should I do it on leather? Number of other stitches there represented as well that this machine will do that I did off camera. If you see a particular stitch that really catches your eye, let me know. From top to bottom, if we were to say stitch 1, stitch 2, stitch 3, stitch 4, stitch 5, stitch 6, stitch 7. We already did a zigzag. So we're going to try to do this one. Teresa is saying, let's do it on leather. I'm almost inclined to change out the needle before I try that, but I can try it with the current needle. But I beat this needle up pretty bad. I beat the needle up pretty bad. See, when you got a great needle, the clarity of the stitching is just spot on, even with a universal needle. So we'll try to do pattern 13. We'll try to do pattern 13 on leather. Try to lay it down on leather. So I'm going to do a quick little cut job here because I had a circle for sewing around in a circle if I decided to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and cut this leather. I'll cut it in a strip over here since I have that excess leather anyway. That's some thick, hard leather. I'll tell you that right now. That's what we're going to be going through with this decorative stitch. Nothing like the smell of leather. Don't you love leather too? I love the way it smells. Lovely smell. So I'm going to get this into place. We'll try our current needle. If we have any major issues, then I'll go ahead and change out the needle. We'll put a fresh needle in. But I think maybe we can get to the finish line like this. So now I'm going to change our setting from 12 over to 13. Just push that button, and one of those circuit boards that I cleaned inside of the machine is telling the machine what to do now. Just like that circuit board in the other Swedish machine that I just did a total conversion of to manual, that circuit board would have told the needle what to do and how to execute those stitches. We don't have that benefit anymore. Thankfully, we do here, especially with one as complex as this. And you can see that the default for this stitch is going to be incredibly wide and right around 2 as far as the stitch length. So not super long, not super short. And that's because that tri-motion is going to be moving that material back and forth. So you can't make it too short or it doesn't have room to execute that stitch. I've talked about that before when I tried to do certain stitches that require the tri-motion. If you make them too short, you're going to run into problems. You're going to run into problems. All right, let me see if I can move this even closer. There we go. That's not too bad. Let's try this super fancy stitch on this leather. It's genuine cowhide. It's probably about 3, almost 4 ounces of leather. And we'll see how we do with a quickly tiring Schmetz Universal 9014 needle. And I've said this in other live streams, the universal needle does not have that cutting edge that a leather needle would. It's a slightly rounded point. So what we're basically doing with the sheer force and grit of this sewing machine, we're punching through that leather with this universal needle. We're literally punching through it because we can't cut through it with a rounded point. Okay, let's give this a try. I'll keep the speed way down, and hopefully we can execute stitch 13 with absolute glory. All right, here we go. Whoops. I just had thread kind of misfeed up here. Let me check my bobbin case real quick. Hold on. See if we might be out of thread on the bobbin case. It kind of jerked on top. Remember you talking about it kind of catching on the edges when that spool pin cover is not large enough, the thread will kind of snag on it a little bit. That's kind of what it just did. Let's see here. I'm not sure where we're at as far as bobbin thread right now, to be honest with you. Let me put a pause on this. Let me take a look at that bobbin case real quick. Looks like we still have bobbin thread. I'm going to check that bobbin case real quick. Again, we're using a bobbin case that would not have been original to the machine, but is virtually identical. Take that out real quick. Just check our thread level. Yeah, we're getting way down there. See it right there? We're getting real near the end, and that might create some feed issues for us. We can try to finish this off because I think we have enough to finish off what we're doing. But yeah, again, the way I wound it, it may have caused it to snag a little bit. All right, let's pull that thread back up. And that may have been just a top issue. It appeared to be a top issue. Kind of like when they wound the spool, they didn't get it quite right. And as it was feeding, it kind of caught a little bit. And if they're doing these at mass production, super crazy speed, that's possible to happen. It's definitely possible to happen. Okay, we did a little bit here. It looks like we're getting some good results. Let me go ahead and restart. I'll go ahead and just cut this off. We'll restart, see if we can get all the way down the pattern. We're getting real low on the bobbin thread. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to cut down our travel distance a little bit. We'll travel this far instead of all the way down like we were. That way, as we're getting lower on the bobbin thread, we don't have any feed issues. Okay, let's see if we can do stitch 13 again. I'm going to check that top thread. It looks like we're okay. I do wish that spool retainer were just a little bit taller in profile, but it is what it is. So let's see if we can do this again. And yeah, and then we'll wrap things up pretty quick here. Probably in the next 5 minutes, we'll wrap things up. Right, here we go. I'm going to let it feed on its own using those pyramid style. Yeah, we're kind of diverting a little bit. I better not do that. kind of made us go off course a little bit there. I think we're getting really low, if not out of bobbin thread almost. All right, I'm going to stop right there. We kind of ran out of gas almost, didn't we? We almost ran out of gas. Yeah, that's really quite lovely. I think we do even better with a leather needle, but that is pretty. It's really pretty. And that's what happens is you're sewing with a universal needle on leather. Depending on how intricate the pattern is, you can get a real good result. But if it becomes more intricate like this, where you've got multiple overlaying going over, it will change the look of that stitch a little bit, because that 9014 needle is just not able to manage the movement of that quite as well, and the definition of it quite as well. We'll kind of look at this. We can look at it vertically. But I tell you, the machine is doing an excellent job. We just have to look at the setup sometimes. And on that original thread I showed you, that real fancy thread, it does not recommend going smaller than a size 80 needle on that thread. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, it's quite lovely. But it would be even lovelier if we probably used a leather needle. See the thickness then again of the leather? And there's, remember we talking about the feed of it, because the bobbin thread is getting so low. See, we got a little bit of a misfeed right there, where it pulled more thread than it needed to. Got back into a nice rhythm, and then a little bit heavier there than it should be. And there, that's not the machine. That's because the bobbin is nearly out. And with that oscillating, hook, it tends to be thread greedy, and it tends to pull that thread in larger groups. And when you get real low on the bobbin like that, it doesn't spin the same way that it does when it's full of thread. It gets a little bit of an uneven spin to it, and it tends to overfeed that thread. So just take that as a lesson. As you get lower in thread, realize you might have some issues because of the way that thread will feed out of that bobbin case. But I think the machine has done, it's done a great job on the sew offs that we've done. I'll go ahead and make sure we have a full bobbin when I get it back to Jennifer. And we'll kind of celebrate these other stitches that we didn't have time to do, that really, really give you an idea of the capabilities of this Model 130. It really is quite a spectacular machine, along with the sew offs that we did during the live stream as well, with the 4 layers of denim. And here we have the 2 layers of denim with the straight and the zigzag. Trying to find the right place to put them. And then also our leather sew off, which our leather sew off could have been even a little bit more spectacular. But again, we're dealing with a needle that's getting tired. We're also dealing with a needle that's quite a bit larger than we would want to do for more intricate work like this. But we'll go ahead and slide it underneath the presser foot anyway. And I want to thank everybody for coming today to see this Swiss machine. We don't get as many Swiss machines in as I'd like to see, but that might also be an evidence either that, either they don't break down as much, they don't have issues, but probably more likely that people are just pushing them until they finally do break down, and then they're going to be calling and asking for help. So I'm going to do a quick little, I'm just curious, see how hot our light has gotten. This is through the housing. 99.3. 102.7. So I did that just out of curiosity because, again, it's not an LED light. It's more of a halogen style light. And that housing gets really hot. It shouldn't be over 100 degrees like that, but that's the nature of the way it was set up. So if you're working in a sewing space that doesn't have good ventilation and you've got a similar setup to this, and your room starts to get real warm and you're thinking, what's wrong? That's what's wrong. That light bulb is putting out a lot of heat. So, all right. Well, God bless everybody. We will join up again soon. I may end up showing you one of these two machines, this one over here, just picked it up on Sunday. And if you want something fun to bring to the next class, you can look up the serial number and bring it to the next class. The serial number is Y like Yankee 9026511. Y like Yankee 9026511. And bring it to the next class like homework, the full birthday, production group size, etc. And that might be our next machine underneath the bright lights. But thank you to Jennifer again for the opportunity of having this great Swiss sewing machine in the workshop, for giving a chance to show you what a real service looks like on the machine through all the photos. Again, if you didn't look up that link yet on Facebook, it's near the beginning of the live chat. You can click on that link and look at the progress photos of the stages and steps that I took this Swiss beauty through. And I am way remiss in bringing this little girl out. Hold on a second. It actually came up Germany, but I'm not going to answer it right now because we're wrapping up this live stream. I forgot to introduce our Swiss Miss. My little characters in the workshop, I have one for representing nearly every brand. And this sweet little girl is our representative for the Swiss sewing machine. She kind of looks like she could be in the Swiss Alps, doesn't she? Yeah. I never met the customer that I ended up shipping her a FOF 332 to make shoes in the Swiss Alps. But she may have looked something like that. So God bless everybody, and we'll see you soon. Take care. I'll get a little bit of music on to wrap us up. Oh, and thank you as always to the leadership team for taking such good care of the family. I couldn't do these live streams. I couldn't do these premieres without their help. So thank you again.